San Francisco. For the next couple of months, the baseball world will center around Manny Machado and Bryce Harper. Machado hit 37 homers in 2018 and slugged .538. Harper hit 34 homers and slugged .496. Willie McCovey slugged .515 for his entire career. Over 22 seasons and 8,197 at-bats, McCovey had an average slugging percentage that would put him right on par with today's biggest stars. At his peak, he was as dangerous as any hitter, breaking the .600 mark in 3 different seasons and slugging .656 in 1969, when he won the National League's MVP award. In an organization that also featured Willie Mays and Barry Bonds, it sometimes has been difficult for McCovey, who died Wednesday at age 80, to get his share of credit as a pure hitter. He was known as a humble star, and he certainly wasn't the type to tell you what he accomplished. But as you celebrate McCovey, maybe take a few minutes to look back at his numbers, which put him in the National Baseball Hall of Fame when he was eligible for the first time in 1986. McCovey won the NL Rookie of the Year award in 1959 and never stopped hitting. He had double-digit homers in 17 consecutive seasons to start his career, making the All-Star team 6 times. He had 730-homer seasons, hitting 44 in 1963 and 45 in 1969. Even with the offensive explosion of the past 2 decades, McCovey still is tied with Frank Thomas for 20th all-time with 521 homers. That 1969 season was McCovey's best, and he edged Tom Seaver for the MVP award. McCovey had a .320, .453, .656 line that year, leading the league in OBP and slugging. He drove in 126 runs and posted an OPS of 209. Years before teams decided to stop pitching to Barry Bonds, they did the same with McCovey. He shattered the previous NL mark by drawing 45 intentional walks in 1969, and the next year he got 40 more. McCovey led the league in intentional walks again in 1971 and 1973. Both of my parents were baseball fans, but my mother was the passionate one. She would shout approval or disgust directly toward the TV, while Pops mostly limited his expressions to grunts and occasional sharp commentary. That was especially so when Willie McCovey was in the batter's box or the on-deck circle, or otherwise looming. Pops always had a grunt or something to say when McCovey came up, as if he were that family member who everybody loves. They don't want to pitch to him. They scared of that son of a gun. Even Drysdale don't want to mess with him. Hurt, knew that was gonna happen. That last line was reserved for McCovey's searing line drives into open spaces, especially the bleachers. My dad thought McCovey was going to blast one every time he came to bat. Those moments flowed through my mind Wednesday upon hearing that McCovey had died. McCovey was, I learned as an adult, a gentle soul. While interviewing years ago, I told him how my dad felt. He grinned and softly uttered 5 words, "Thank you. I appreciate that." As a preteen Giants fan, I came to see McCovey's bat as our greatest hope. I was lucky enough to attend a few games at Candlestick Park, which had the greenest grass I'd ever seen, and the presence of black players in baseball was standard. Every National League team had them. Clemente, Aaron, Robinson, Banks, Stargell, Pinson, Brock, Gibson. My parents were around when Jackie Robinson integrated baseball, and they seemed to take particular delight in the flood of talent that followed. They were from the South, Louisiana and Georgia, as were many of the players. There was a kinship. They liked Willie Mays, but Pops was more strongly drawn to McCovey. I suspect it was because McCovey, like Pops, was more about actions than words. He loved the way McCovey struck fear into opponents of all colors. As I learned more about the game and those who play it, I understood. Running will educate, and the stories I read about McCovey's place in baseball taught me that opponents would rather pitch to Mays than McCovey, who by then was fading. Bob Gibson, conceivably the most imposing pitcher in baseball history, once described McCovey as the scariest hitter in baseball. As I evolved into a Cincinnati Reds fan in the 1970s, thanks to Oakland's own Joe Morgan and the Big Red Machine, I dreaded the idea of McCovey coming to the plate. So, too, did Reds manager Sparky Anderson. "I walked Willie McCovey so many times," Anderson once said. "He could have walked to the moon on all those walks." More Anderson, "If you let him bat 600 times and pitched to him instead of around him, he'd hit 80 home runs." Though he was given to hyperbole, Anderson's apprehension toward pitching to McCovey was based on merit. The big slugger had inflicted more than his share of emotional trauma onto the Reds, as well as every other team. For a 21st-century comparison, you'd have to turn toward Barry Bonds in the early 2000s, when it was wiser to walk him than to pitch to him. They had similar bat speed through the zone, similar confidence at the plate and similar disdain for the man on the mound. Except McCovey had no asterisk attached to any of his 521 home runs. McCovey led the league in intentional walks 4 times and was the first player to hit 2 home runs in the same inning on 2 different occasions. He was the boogeyman to opponents, salvation to his teammates. Jim Bowden, the pitcher who authored one of the most revealing inside sports books of all time, Ball 4, described within it a scene involving McCovey that captures the essence of the 6'4", 200-pound left-handed batter. A group of terrorized pitchers stood around the batting cage watching Willie McCovey belt some tremendous line drives over the right field fence, Bowden wrote. "Every time a ball bounced into the seats, we'd make little whimpering animal sounds. 'Hey, Willie,' I said. 'Can you do that whenever you want to?' He didn't crack a smile. 'Just about,' he said, and he hit another one." More animal sounds, Pops would have fit right in. San Francisco. When it was over, Brandon Crawford's season looked similar to previous ones. Crawford hit .254, finishing within 6 points of .250, one direction or the other, for the 6th time in 7 years. He hit 14 homers for a second consecutive season. His .719 OPS was 6 points higher than his career average, but Crawford got to those numbers in an unusual way. He had a rough start, then was the hottest hitter in the National League for about 6 weeks, and then struggled to produce down the stretch as he played through multiple injuries. Here are the highs and lows of a roller coaster season for the Giants shortstop. What went right? Crawford made a swing adjustment at the end of April, and in May it seemed there was no way to get him out. He hit .412 in the month, which led MLB, with a 1.064 OPS, 21 RBI, 4 homers and 9 doubles. His .4460 BP was second in the majors to only Mike Trout. The scorching streak actually extended into June. Crawford had 4 hits in a win on June 10, including 3-1, a 2-run homer off Max Scherzer. Through that point, Crawford was batting .338 and was a legitimate MVP candidate in the National League. From May 1 through June 10, Crawford hit .439, the 8th best stretch over 36 games in franchise history. Crawford was voted in as an All-Star for the first time and made the team for the second time. He once again was a standout defensively, and he's a finalist to win his 4th straight Gold Glove award. The injuries put a dent in his numbers, but Crawford deserves credit for playing 151 games despite dealing with aches to just about every part of his body. A right knee injury was particularly bothersome, but didn't keep him out of the lineup much. He has played at least 143 games in each of his 7 full seasons. What went wrong? Before the hot streak, there was a brutal start. Crawford had a .189, .237, .300 slash line through the end of April, and the second half was nearly as unkind. Without an ability to swing as he normally does, Crawford hit .151 in August and .217 in September. Overall, he had a .543 OPS after playing in the All-Star game. It was .825 before the break. With 10 of his 14 homers, Crawford was worth 1.9 WAR, per Fangraphs, his lowest since 2012. He was worth 6 defensive runs saved, his lowest total since 2013, and the knee injury put a dent in his other defensive metrics. Crawford has had a stranglehold on the Gold Glove award in recent seasons, but it appears Nick Ahmed has a real shot at unseating him. Contract status: Crawford will make $15 million on 2019 in each of the following 2 seasons. He has a full no-trade clause. The future: this is an easy one, regardless of which direction the new front office goes. Crawford is still one of the best shortstops in the National League, and with a full no-trade clause, the lifelong Giants fan isn't going anywhere, even if the Giants trade veterans in a partial rebuild. The only question going forward is his health. Crawford manages his body as well as anyone, but he'll be 32 next spring, so it's possible that an injury-plagued second half was a preview of what's to come. Crawford and the Giants are optimistic that it wasn't. His right knee will not require surgery, and he'll be ready to go when pitchers and catchers report, and ready to jog out to shortstop on opening day.